At 24 weeks pregnant, I went to the hospital alone for my prenatal appointment. As I looked down at the appointment slip, someone rushed past me. The person he was holding kicked my shoulder. The force was so great that I stumbled back 2 steps. A passing doctor helped steady me, allowing me to regain my balance. While thanking the doctor, I looked up at the culprit, only to feel instantly as though I had fallen into an ice cellar. That figure, Robert! My face paled as I called out my husband's name, but he rushed into the emergency room without looking back. He was holding a woman in his arms. The woman's wine-red high heels, like blood-stained nails, pierced my eyes with pain. It had been arranged for me to have my 4D ultrasound today, but at breakfast, Robert suddenly received a call saying there was a problem at the company. Robert's assistant was very capable. He wouldn't have called Robert unless there was a very serious issue. Although I was reluctant, I still sensibly told him, it's just a prenatal appointment. I can go by myself. Sarah, maybe we should go tomorrow instead. I don't feel right about you going alone. As he said this, Robert's brows were tightly furrowed, his eyes full of self-reproach. Robert was once my boss's boss. At the time, the company didn't allow office romances. To pursue me, he resolutely left the global Fortune 500 company, even though he was about to be promoted to vice president of the North American division, and started his own business. Since we confirmed our relationship, he had always been devoted to me, never breaking a promise unless absolutely unavoidable. His suggestion made my heart flutter for a moment, but I quickly calmed down. It's really hard to book an appointment with a specialist. I don't want to miss it, and we have plans for tomorrow anyway. Just make sure you spend time with me tomorrow. I was 31 this year and had been trying to conceive for 3 years, finally getting good news at the beginning of the year. Since I wasn't getting any younger, I wanted this child to be safe and sound, so I always booked appointments with specialists for every prenatal appointment. Tomorrow was our 5th wedding anniversary, and Robert had planned the itinerary long ago. If I could get a beautiful 4D ultrasound picture today, it would be the icing on the cake. Just after I finished speaking, Robert's phone rang again. After urging him to leave, I tidied up and drove myself to the hospital. My cheeks still held the warmth of his kiss before he left, so when I saw that familiar figure holding a woman appear at the hospital, my shock turned into self-doubt. Maybe I saw it wrong. Although the man was dressed almost exactly like Robert, Robert should be at the company dealing with issues. Why would he be rushing to the hospital? Why would he leave me to have my prenatal appointment alone, only to rush to the hospital holding another woman? And why would he completely ignore my call? He was so good to me that my Jessica said I must have saved the galaxy in my past life. I definitely saw it wrong. Sure enough, pregnant women tend to rely more on their husbands and can even mistake others for them. I rubbed my slightly aching shoulder and shook my head with a wry smile. Turning, I stepped into the elevator. To my surprise, Robert's assistant, carrying Robert's bag, also rushed towards the emergency room. The elevator doors closed, reflecting my stunned face. The appearance of Robert's assistant undeniably shattered all my self-doubt. I hadn't seen wrong, that person was indeed Robert. But why was he here when he should have been at the company? Who was that woman? Why was he so panicked he didn't see me and couldn't hear me call his name? I desperately wanted to rush over and demand an explanation. Just then, the elevator stopped. Lost in thought, I was eased out by the exiting crowd. Coming back to my senses, I prepared to go downstairs to find him, but then I heard a nurse calling out. Number 17, Sarah Song, is Sarah Song here? If not, I'll call the next person. I looked at the crowded benches outside the OB/GYN department and hesitated for 2 seconds before answering. I'm here. No matter what, the baby was the most important thing. I should also trust Robert, trust our relationship. Maybe things weren't as I imagined. While waiting in line, I sent Robert a messaging app message. Still busy? The text I typed showed no emotion. He didn't reply until after I finished the 4D ultrasound. The baby was very cooperative in my belly. Originally, he was facing my back, but as soon as the probe was placed, he turned around. It was a good sign. Looking at the clear and beautiful features on the screen, all my unease disappeared, and my mind was filled with dreams of a happy future for our family of 3. However, as soon as I walked out of the examination room, my phone rang. It was a call from my Jessica. "Sarah, I heard Robert's first love is back in the country." Robert's first love was his first love. They dated from high school until university graduation, then she went abroad to study, and they went their separate ways. Robert had told me about this honestly when he was pursuing me, and I had accepted it openly. After all, who doesn't have a first love? But hearing my Jessica mention it now, for some reason, my mind was filled with those wine-red high heels. "Sarah?" My Jessica didn't hear my voice and called out worriedly from the other end of the phone. I snapped back to reality and replied, "Yeah, Jessica, I'm at the hospital for a checkup right now. It's a bit noisy around here. I'll call you when I get home." "Oh, okay. It's nothing, really. I just heard this gossip at a dinner gathering. Don't take it to heart. I've seen how good Robert is to you with my own eyes. Nothing could possibly go wrong." Jessica was a witness to our love. She knew how Robert had decisively given up his bright future and started his own business to pursue me and fulfill my dreams. She had also seen the scene where, when I was unhappy, Robert would fly back overnight, but afraid of disturbing my sleep, would wait downstairs for me all night. In her eyes, even if I was unreasonable and asked for the stars and the moon, Robert would have to find a way to pluck them from the sky for me. So, I should feel reassured, nothing could go wrong. I hung up the phone, trying to comfort myself. My phone vibrated again. A pop-up notification showed a messaging app message from Robert. I hesitated for 2 seconds before opening it. "Yeah, I was just in a meeting. The issue is quite difficult to handle. I'll probably be home late. Wife, are you done with your appointment?" The black text on the white screen felt like shards of ice piercing my heart, instantly making me feel cold all over. A meeting? But he was clearly at the hospital, the same hospital where I had my prenatal appointment. He was lying to me. This lie, I guessed, started with that phone call this morning when he left home. Or perhaps even earlier. Countless conjectures tangled into a messy knot, filling my head. Unbeknownst to me, my eyes had filled with tears. The chat background was our wedding photo. In the picture, Robert's handsome face was already blurred. My father had taught me since I was a child not to say anything when my mind was confused. I wiped away my tears, didn't reply, and turned off my phone, planning to talk to Robert face to face when he came home tonight. Before leaving the hospital, I stood in the lobby for a while, lost in thought, but eventually walked towards the emergency room desk. "Excuse me, could you please tell me if a patient named Emily Sue came in recently? Do you know which emergency room she's in? I'm her sister, and I can't reach her by phone." Emily Sue was Robert's first love. The nurse was busy. She looked up at me, quickly operated on the system, and then told me briskly, "She has a fracture. Go check the 3rd emergency room to see if she's there." "Oh, okay. Thank you." My voice was dry as I thanked her. I pretended to walk towards the 3rd emergency room for a few steps, then turned back and followed the crowd out of the lobby. I didn't actually intend to confront them, belly and all. I was just holding on to a last shred of hope to verify. But that hope was shattered, and my heart felt like dead ash. Lost in thought, I returned home. The living room was cold and empty. Large patches of sunlight fell on the sofa, yet I still felt cold all over. Unconsciously, the sunlight slanted west, eventually dipping below the horizon. The grandfather clock chimed 12 times. The hour hand rested on the number 10. Robert still wasn't home. The chat history remained on that message, "Wife, are you done with your appointment?" I hadn't replied, and he hadn't asked again. Was it because Emily Sue was back that my matters were no longer important? It turned out that the first love I thought was light and fleeting held such heavy weight in Robert's heart. Ding dong, a pop-up notification for a delivery update appeared on my phone. It was the 5th anniversary gift I had secretly prepared for him. It was supposed to arrive today, but it was delayed on the way and would now arrive tomorrow noon. I didn't know if it was an omen or just well-timed. I thought to myself wryly, and my phone rang again. It was a messaging app voice call request from Robert. My heart inexplicably tightened. I took a deep breath before pressing the answer button. Wife, are you asleep? Robert's voice was as gentle as always. The ache in my heart quickly overflowed, and my eyes filled with tears. Ours again. Suppressing the urge to cry, I answered with a voice, not yet. What's wrong? You sound off. How's the baby? Is he okay? Robert sounded anxious, his tone full of worry. I wiped my eyes, trying my best to control my voice, and instead of answering, I asked, Are you on your way home? Silence fell on the other end of the phone for a full 30 seconds. My heart sank further and further until he finally said with difficulty, I'm sorry, Sarah. The issue with the company is too serious this time. I have to go to Oakwood City tonight and won't be back until the day after tomorrow. What Robert meant was that he wouldn't be home tonight, and he wouldn't be celebrating our 5th anniversary either. Because of what happened this morning, I had no doubt that he was lying to me again. The calm I had maintained all day collapsed at this moment. I was at the hospital today and saw you holding Emily Sue and going to the emergency room. Before I could finish the second half of the sentence, I heard him say in a rush, Wife, I have to catch my flight. You should get some rest early. After saying that, without waiting for my reply, Robert abruptly hung up the phone. I stood there dumbfounded, holding my phone. The woman's voice that I heard during the pause in his words before he hung up echoed in my ears. She called him Rob. Such an equal and intimate form of address. Besides Emily Sue, I couldn't think of a second person. Thump, tears rolled down my cheeks, falling onto my skirt. The hot tears instantly turned cold. That phone call felt like it had drained all the strength from my body. I sat on the sofa in a daze, letting the tears flow faster and faster. The bitter emotions piled up in my chest, choking me until I finally couldn't hold back and broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I wasn't someone who cried easily. Except for when my parents passed away, I had never cried so achingly as I did at this moment. During my 3 years in high school, both my parents fell seriously ill and passed away one after the other. Since then, I had felt like a piece of driftwood, drifting in the world, until I fell in love with and married Robert. The day we confirmed our relationship, Robert said he was willing to be my root in this world, and as long as I didn't let go, he would never leave. At first, I just thought it was a romantic declaration, but after that, our time together made me gradually believe it was true. Especially when a small life began growing in my belly, I firmly believed that heaven was kind to me and had given me another bond. But everything that happened today plunged me back into confusion. After crying for what felt like an eternity, I finally calmed down again. I picked up my phone and dialed Jessica's number. Jessica and I had known each other for over 20 years. I had never kept anything from her, and she always stood by my side. To my surprise, after I told her about Robert lying to me and all my suspicions, Jessica refuted me in shock. Sarah, are you overthinking this? Robert adores you more than life itself. How could he possibly betray you? Jessica's words made me instantly recall our honeymoon trip abroad. We went to Norway. While drinking at night, I accidentally had too much and, in the middle of the night, started demanding steamed buns. Robert couldn't soothe me and had to reluctantly go out to find them. But it was the middle of the night, and we were in a foreign country. How could they be easy to find? Robert searched for almost 2.5 hours through the wind and snow, finally buying a bag of steamed buns from an Asian grocery store that was still open, only to find that I had already fallen asleep. When I woke up the next day, I learned that he had developed a fever of 40 degrees overnight and was taken to the nearest hospital by the hotel's staff. And before he left, he had instructed the staff not to wake me up. This memory made my suspicions waver slightly. But the next second, I heard Jessica say with a complicated tone, Sarah, how about I find someone to keep an eye on him for a few days? I had a bad feeling and asked, what's wrong? I sent you a photo. Take a look. I opened messaging app and saw the photo Jessica had sent. The girl wore a wine-red dress, her chestnut wavy hair nearly reaching her waist. Looking at her face, I asked in confusion, when is this photo from? I don't remember it at all. Jessica was strangely silent for a while before she said softly, the person in the photo is Emily Sue. The week before, while watching TV together, I had even joked with Robert about how the plump orange cat was playing the being a stand-in/replacement trope. At the time, my heart was full of sympathy for Jinhuan, and I didn't know what Robert's expression was. I never expected that this dramatic plot twist had already been splashed all over me. That scumbag is really good at hiding things. And I was just saying how good he is to you. Jessica cursed angrily, but my heart felt strangely calm. If he can be this good to me, his stand-in, how much must he love Emily Sue? No wonder he didn't ask anything even when I didn't reply to his messaging app messages all day. Perhaps because my reaction was too calm, Jessica became worried instead. Sarah, are you home right now? Should I come pick you up? No need. I've already cried and figured things out. There's no need to punish myself for their mistakes. Jessica sighed. Sarah, I really don't know if you're being so rational is a good thing. You need to vent your emotions. Keeping them bottled up will cause problems eventually. I knew Jessica was worried that experiencing something like this while pregnant would make me depressed. But I was never someone ruled by emotions. Emotions aren't just for venting, they can also be processed. Don't worry, I'll be fine. After speaking, I heard someone calling her on the other end of the phone. Guessing she was working overtime, I urged her, go back to work quickly. Call me if you need anything. All right then, I'll hang up now. Call me anytime you need me. Although I wasn't controlled by emotions, a pile of questions filled my mind. For example, how should I talk to him? I'm still pregnant, how will I live my life from now on? I'll have to rely entirely on myself, but I've been out of the workforce for many years. These questions kept me awake all night. Seeing the sky beginning to lighten, I decided to get up and open my computer, pulling out my old resume. I was browsing job hunting website until close to noon when someone suddenly knocked on the door. They said it was takeout Robert had ordered for me from Maple Leaf Bistro, restaurant name, and a bouquet of flowers. Before I could refuse the delivery, I received a call from Jessica. Sarah, I ran into Robert. He's having lunch with Emily Sue. Huh? Did you go to Oakwood City? No, we're right here. Robert, Before Jessica could finish, I interrupted her. Send me the address. Jessica didn't hesitate. After sending it, she also reminded me, drive slowly when you come, be careful, and don't be afraid. I'll wait for you here. I'm not going over there. I'm just sending them a surprise. I was pregnant, how could I risk going myself? After hanging up, I sent the address to the delivery driver who was waiting for me. Take these things to this address. The recipients are Mr. Robert and Miss Sue. Oh, by the way, do you offer a service where you deliver a message? The delivery driver, as if belonging to some mysterious organization, nodded. Yes, we even have a loudspeaker. Okay, after you deliver it, please pass on a message for me. Mrs. Sarah wishes Mr. Robert and his first love a happy meal on their 5th wedding anniversary. Half an hour later, I received a frontline report from Jessica. That was amazing, Sarah. The delivery driver you called brought 2 huge speakers and announced the message. Everyone in the restaurant heard it. Robert was sweating profusely, and Emily Sue's face turned as red as a pig's liver. Not long after, Robert came home, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. I glanced at him, unable to resist speaking with sarcasm. Back from Oakwood City so soon? Eager to celebrate our 5th anniversary? Oh, well, that's too bad. The takeout you ordered for me made me feel sick, so I gave it to the dog. Sarah, that's enough. Robert frowned at me, as if suppressing something. His reaction made it seem like I was the one who had done something wrong and was being unreasonable. A chill spread through my heart. Following his words, I said, I think that's enough too, Robert. Sign the papers. Saying this, I picked up the printed divorce papers and handed them to him. Robert saw the words on the papers but didn't take them. The crease between his brows deepened further. Sarah, don't be ridiculous. He walked past me, carrying a perfume scent that wasn't mine, yet nonchalantly told me not to be ridiculous. Robert's attitude completely enraged me. Perhaps Jessica was right, emotions do need to be vented. I glared at Robert's retreating back, my anger soaring. I'm being ridiculous? Robert, put your hand on your heart and tell me, when I was having my prenatal appointment alone, you were with your first love. On our 5th anniversary, you left me home to eat takeout, and you were with your first love. Who do you think is being ridiculous? Robert turned around, his frown deepening. Besides being my first love, Emily Sue is also my mentor's daughter. He entrusted me with taking care of her before he passed away. My mentor's kindness to me was immense. No. She's going through some difficulties, and I'm just helping her out. Do you really need to react like this? I'll just consider you sensitive because you're pregnant and won't hold this against you this time. No wonder he had such a matter-of-fact attitude. He genuinely believed I was making a fuss over nothing. Ha! I laughed coldly, fuming. Just helping out? If that were all, why did you keep lying to me if your conscience was clear? Robert's face clearly stiffened. Gathering momentum, I questioned coldly, even if it's repayment, Emily Sue only has a fracture. She's not dying. Was it necessary for you to abandon your pregnant wife and rush her to the hospital? She already had a fracture. Why wasn't she staying home? Why go to a restaurant? This string of questions left Robert speechless. Until I took out Emily Sue's photo, wanting to ask him how good of a stand-in I was. However, before the words left my mouth, I saw him look at me with eyes full of disappointment and say, Sarah Song, when did you become so scheming? Robert frowned at me and said, I always thought you had a sad background but were simple-minded and straightforward. I never expected you to secretly track me and investigate an innocent person. Since you investigated, you should know that we haven't done anything. With every word he spoke, my heart grew colder. So, because his first love was back, he didn't even ask and just concluded that I was a petty person with malicious intentions. The question I hadn't asked moments ago now had its answer. This stand-in for his first love, was clearly not qualified. Too lazy to say another useless word to him, I pushed the divorce papers forward again. Sign them. Robert still didn't take them, observing me with a complicated look. You can just say what you want directly. Don't use these 2 words to threaten me. You're overthinking it. I didn't find evidence of your affair, and I'm too lazy. Why to look? Besides the child, I don't want anything. I just wanted to get divorced quickly and escape this farcical marriage. Robert finally picked up the divorce papers, quickly flipped through a few pages, and asked, You're not even asking for child support? You just want this child? Do you think you can support him in your current situation? The contempt in his words was like a dagger, stabbing fiercely into my heart. That's none of your business. Not wanting him to look down on me, my eyes were already aching terribly, but I still held back the tears. Robert slapped the divorce papers onto the table with a crack. The next second, his gaze fell on the computer screen. You're looking for a job? Do you think you can find a good job in your current state? Robert closed the web page without my consent, and under my angry gaze, he coldly concluded. Sarah Song, don't be naive. In your current state, you can't leave me. As soon as he finished speaking, his phone suddenly rang. He saw the caller ID and frowned. His eyes held obvious worry. Is it Emily Sue? I spoke my guess in an inscrutable tone. Robert turned off his phone, not answering directly, but softened his tone and told me, Sarah, don't overthink things. Since I said nothing happened between us, it hasn't in the past, and it won't in the future. He walked up to me, his expression returning to its usual gentleness. I know things have been difficult these past couple of days, and I was partly to blame. Once I finish helping her, I'll make it up to you properly, okay? After saying that, Robert gently stroked my head, just like he used to when I was upset, then turned and left home. Most likely, he was going back to find Emily Sue. Watching his retreating figure, the calm I had tried to maintain in my mind was still struck by shock. If Emily Sue hadn't appeared, I wouldn't have known how insignificant I was in his heart. Thinking of how confidently he said I couldn't leave him, I reopened the job hunting website he had just closed. I used to be a programmer. To maintain system stability at all times, this profession often requires working overtime on demand. With my pregnant belly now, even if I interviewed, no one would hire me. It would be better to find some freelance gigs, do some part-time work, which would not only earn me money but also help me get back into the rhythm of working. The economic situation hasn't been great these past 2 years, and many companies cut costs by laying off employees. But when new projects come in, there's work overload, and they need temporary help. So part-time work was easier to find than full-time. That evening, a startup company contacted me about wanting to develop an app. I scheduled to meet with them the next day to sign the contract. To my surprise, when I arrived, I found that the owner of the company was Emily Sue. And Robert, who hadn't come home again that night, was sitting beside her. Walking into the private room and seeing the two of them, my mind went blank. Emily Sue was wearing a small wine-red shirt, her black wavy hair draped over her shoulders, looking very alluring. This was the first time I had seen her face to face. I had to admit, I did resemble her a lot. But compared to me, who was usually barefaced, she didn't seem like a first love. Instead, she was like a captivating mark that could steal one's soul. Robert also clearly froze for a second before frowning, his face full of displeasure. Emily Sue, on the other hand, looked at me and asked in a business-like manner, "Are you Sarah Song?" It sounded like she didn't know I was Robert's lawfully wedded wife. But if she truly didn't know, it was too much of a coincidence. Haha, incredibly coincidental. I regained my composure and calmly replied, "Yes. You." Her gaze swept over my belly, and she asked in surprise, "You're pregnant?" "Yes." Emily Sue became serious. This project requires completion in a month, and during the testing phase, it will need constant adjustments and modifications. Are you sure you want to take this on? Before I could speak, Robert interjected, "She can't do it. Let's find someone else." "Why not?" I looked at Robert coldly. "I already understood your requirements yesterday. Since I came here, it means I can complete it." The crease between Robert's brows deepened again. Emily Sue seemed to sense his change in mood. She soothingly patted his hand and said softly, "Rob, don't be like that. I trust Miss Song's ability." Then, she turned to me and explained apologetically, "I'm sorry, Miss Song. This is my business partner and my boyfriend, Robert. He was just worried about the project's progress being delayed, that's why he said that. I hope you don't mind." Emily Sue smiled politely, but a hint of challenge gleamed in her eyes. I suddenly realized that this meeting today was a trap Emily Sue had deliberately set for me. I looked at Robert. He was just frowning, with no intention of explaining anything. While I was momentarily stunned, Emily Sue pretended to be puzzled and asked, "Does Miss Song really need money?" Logically speaking, someone who is already pregnant and still working, her husband surely wouldn't allow it, right? Robert's expression was very unpleasant. But I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't need money before, but now it seems I'm about to get some. I took out my phone with the recording app open and showed it to them. "Thank you, Miss Sue. I don't need to work for money now, so I won't be taking this project. Oh, by the way, husband, I'm going back to revise the divorce papers now. I'll need you to take some time off from cheating to sign them, okay?" After saying that, I put my phone back in my bag, turned around, and left the private room. Before closing the door, I heard the sound of a chaw. I are being pushed over. **** As I stood outside the hotel waiting for a car, Robert caught up to me. "Sarah Song, did you set a trap for me?" He grabbed my arm, his eyes filled with shock and anger. But Emily Sue was the one who contacted me first. Hearing him question me again without any regard for the truth, I no longer felt angry, not even bothering to explain the truth. "You said I was scheming, so of course, I have to show you just how scheming I can be, otherwise, wouldn't I be letting down your evaluation of me?" Robert looked at me with a complicated expression for a while, then suppressing his temper, he told me, "Emily just said that casually. Even if you recorded it, it wouldn't be evidence of my cheating. Even if it were, I don't care about the money. If you really want it, I can give it to you right now, but don't threaten me with divorce. If you go to the county clerk's office with me right now, I can give up that money." Robert was holding my arm. I could feel his grip tighten after I said that. I'll say this one last time, stop messing around, Sarah Song. Emily had a very difficult time living abroad and is in a fragile state emotionally. I can only cooperate with her treatment first. He lowered his voice to explain to me, but I was completely unmoved. I think it's great. If she's in a fragile state emotionally, and your mind is also messed up, you can get help together. Emily Sue's emotional state is fragile? If she were truly fragile, she wouldn't have had the energy to set a trap for me today. I wasn't deliberately insulting Robert. After all, no one with a normal mind would come up with such an excuse for cheating. Sarah Song. Robert's voice was heavy, almost grinding my name through his teeth. Just then, a car stopped in front of me. I shook off his hand, bent down, and got in. Robert grabbed the car door, preventing me from closing it. Get out, I'll take you home. No need. Yo. Your first love is waiting for you. I pulled hard on the car door. Just then, I heard Emily Sue's call from a distance. Rob? Emily Sue ran over, one hand hanging by her side, the other clutching her chest. She was breathing heavily, as if she would die any second. Robert looked back, and I took the opportunity to close the car door, urging the driver in a low voice, go. The car sped off. I looked up at the rearview mirror and suddenly noticed that Emily Sue had a bandage wrapped around her left wrist. Remembering the image of Robert holding her at the hospital that day, a scoff escaped my heart. Ha! She fractured her hand, and now she can't even walk? As soon as I entered the home, I received a messaging app message from Robert. Sarah Song, stop making a scene. Give me some time, I'll handle things. As long as you don't cause any more trouble, I can overlook everything that's happened. Pfft. What nonsense was he talking? I scornfully turned off my phone, not intending to reply at all. And I didn't plan to reply in the future either. He could wait for my lawyer's letter. Thinking this, my stomach growled. The baby seemed to be protesting that I hadn't eaten properly at noon, kicking and punching inside my belly. I quickly rushed to the kitchen, rummaged through the refrigerator for some ingredients, and made a meal. Even though Robert said he would give me money, I still needed to look for part-time work. After all, when it comes to raising a child, who doesn't want more money? Especially since Robert was convinced I couldn't leave him, I was determined to become independent quickly. After lunch, I immediately buried myself in front of the computer. Perhaps it was true that when you're unlucky in love, you're lucky in your career. Although Emily Sue's app project fell through, 2 or 3 large companies reached out to me with offers. They were still part-time positions, but the fees would be several times higher once completed. I worked through the afternoon without sleeping and created a prototype. To my surprise, when I was preparing to make dinner, I suddenly started having stomach pains. I had diarrhea and vomiting, and also a fever. The fever came on very suddenly and was quite severe. Before long, I felt dizzy, and my vision started to blur. Very afraid that something was wrong with the baby, I quickly took out my phone, wanting to ask for help. And in that instant, the first person who came to mind was still Robert. In the moment of hesitation, my hand had already pressed the call button before my consciousness did. By the time I came back to my senses, the call had connected. However, before I could speak, I heard Emily Sue's sweet voice from the other end. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob is already asleep. If you need anything, you can find him tomorrow? Oh, right. Aren't you already preparing the divorce papers? You must have dialed the wrong number, right? In that case, I won't pass on the message, okay? Emily Sue didn't give me a chance to speak and just hung up the phone. I had resolved not to be angry with that pair of dogs, but my body was beyond my control. Not only was I trembling with anger, but the fury also surged through my body, and I vomited up a large mouthful of blood with a wow. My head grew more and more feverish and confused. I couldn't even find a tissue to wipe my mouth before my vision suddenly went black, and I completely fainted. **** When I woke up again, all I could see was a vast expanse of white. The strong smell of disinfectant reminded me that I was in a hospital. I didn't know how long I had been asleep, my body felt as if it had rusted. Slowly turning my head, I saw Jessica sitting beside me, her eyes and nose red, as if she had been crying. I reached out my hand with difficulty and touched her, asking in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong?" "Jessica, see me." Dee startled and shivered. She didn't answer me immediately, but just felt my forehead. "The fever's gone. How do you feel?" "Pretty good, I guess, except my throat is a bit sore." As I was speaking, a nurse came in carrying a tray, looked at me, and had a strange expression. "You're awake. Did your friend tell you about the situation?" "I haven't told her yet." Jessica spoke before I could answer. Somehow, I had a bad feeling. As if to confirm my premonition, Jessica's tears fell with a plop. The next second, I heard the nurse say with a complicated tone, "You had a sudden high fever and were discovered too late. When you arrived at the hospital, we couldn't detect a fetal heartbeat. The doctors consulted and confirmed that the fetus was deceased. We need to prepare for induction." At nearly 25 weeks pregnant, enduring physical pain, I gave birth with all my might to a stillbirth. With the disappearance of that little life, my soul also seemed to have departed. I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the pale ceiling, my mind uncontrollably wondering if, on that feverish night, while I was unconscious, the baby had also suffered immense pain before passing away. If Robert had answered the phone that night, would the outcome have been different? Or, if that night, I had called an ambulance instead of Robert, would the baby have survived? I felt trapped in a dead end. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get out. On the third day after the induction, Robert finally appeared at the hospital. I didn't know what I looked like lying in the hospital bed, but Robert frowned the moment he saw me. Was it disgust? Right, I must have looked swollen, pale, and bloodless, likely disgusting compared to his first love. But I didn't care. I was also disgusted with him. I numbly shifted my gaze, no longer looking at him. To my surprise, he told me with a tone mixed with disappointment and anger. "Sar. Ah Song, you shouldn't hurt our child just because you were angry for a moment. You're even more willful than I imagined." He was blaming me. For a crime he imagined. Ha! Angry for a moment? He thought too highly of himself and Emily Sue. If I could, I would rather they died than harm my baby. However, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't want to say another word to him, not even to explain the truth. My silence, in Robert's eyes, was an admission. He said many more words blaming me until the doctor on rounds arrived and sharply stopped him. "Are you the family member?" "What kind of family member are you?" The pregnant woman had a high fever for 2 days and was only found by a friend. The fetal heartbeat was already gone when she was brought to the hospital. You, the family member, were negligent in care. How dare you blame her? I didn't cry when Robert was blindly blaming me. But hearing the doctor's words, my nose tingled with a sudden sadness. I squeezed my eyes shut fiercely, unwilling to let tears expose my vulnerability. Suddenly, a loud thump sounded in my ears. "Sarah, I'm sorry, I didn't know." Robert's voice was tinged with a sob. He rarely cried. I had hardly ever heard him cry. I once joked with him that someone like him crying for me just once would make my whole life worthwhile. But now that he was really crying, my heart was like stagnant water, without any ripple. "Sarah, please look at me, okay? If you're angry with me, just hit me, scold me, just don't stay silent." Robert said this, then grabbed my hand and hit his own face with it. "Sarah, it's my fault. Please don't be like this. Don't scare me like this. I've already dealt with everything regarding Emily Sue. I'll focus on being with you from now on." He said a lot. But I still didn't look at him, didn't want to talk to him. He knelt by my hospital bed for a long time. I never looked at him once, or did I say a single word to him. Another 2 days passed, and he handled my discharge paperwork. He gently carried me to the car and told me, "The doctor said you have stress trauma right now and need to resolve the issue. Sarah, I'm taking you home. We'll start over." Sitting in the car, looking out at the street scenes, I felt as though I had lived through an age. Going home with him, I only intended to pack some simple luggage and leave. Start over? It was completely impossible. Unexpectedly, when the car stopped at our home, I saw Emily Sue again. Emily Sue had originally looked happy. But seeing Robert helping me out of the car, her smile froze on her face. However, she quickly adjusted her expression and walked towards us with a graceful posture. Seeing the face whose features were remarkably similar to mine, I finally discovered our difference. She smiled often, but her smile never reached her eyes. "Rob, you called me over, is something wrong? I received your message and cancelled a client specifically to come over." So, it was Robert who called her. I shook off Robert's hand and walked into the home expressionlessly, leaving them space to talk alone. Emily Sue's smile deepened, seemingly appreciating my tactfulness. However, Robert caught up, put his arm around my shoulder, and told Emily Sue seriously, "Apologize." Emily Sue was stunned. "What did you say?" "Apologize to Sarah. There is no ambiguous relationship between us. I only agreed to help you out of my promise to my mentor." I hadn't expected Robert to be willing to ask his first love to apologize to me, his stand-in. I also didn't want to waste brain cells thinking about why he was doing this. He was very much like the character He Shu-hwan from Cheung Yao's dramas, wavering between me and his first love. But I wasn't yipping, nor roopying. My feelings for him had long been worn away by his repeated choices of his first love. The first love was always proud, always superior. Emily Sue, asked to apologize, just looked at him in disbelief, her voice trembling as she asked, "Rob, have you looked clearly at your heart? How do you explain the confession at 15? How do you explain the 3 boxes of love letters? Your wife just got pregnant, yet you ran abroad because of a single phone call from me. How do you explain that? Look at our faces, so alike, how do you explain that?" Each question was heartbreakingly delivered, but after saying them, she left directly, tears in her eyes. His first love wasn't just a first love, she was also a manipulative type. Everything she said wasn't genuinely seeking an explanation from Robert. She said it on purpose for me to hear, but she had no idea that my heart had turned to stone, impenetrable. "Sarah, it's not like she said." Robert wanted to explain to me, but I interrupted him. "Robert." I hadn't spoken for too long, and my voice was hoarse, like torn cloth. Robert, however, looked ecstatic. "Sarah, you're finally willing to talk to me. I don't love you anymore, Robert. Let's get a divorce." I looked at him indifferently, neither sad nor happy. Robert froze, tears visibly pooling in his eyes. "Sarah." I ignored his calls and turned to unlock the door and go inside. After being in the hospital for 7 days, no one seemed to have come home. It was cold and empty. I walked through the living room and noticed a patch of brownish bloodstain on the white carpet. It was the blood I had vomited that day. I hadn't expected it to be such a large patch, so glaring on the carpet. I didn't intend to clean it up. After all, this home would have nothing to do with me anymore. I walked past it indifferently and went straight upstairs. Since marrying Robert, everything I had was bought with his money. So when I left, I didn't plan to take anything. I calmly packed a few necessities, took a final look at the bedroom, and many images flashed through my mind, many images, ones I thought I would often recall when I was old. But recalling them now, I didn't know how much pretense was hidden within them. Carrying my backpack downstairs, Robert was staring at the carpet, lost in thought. I ignored him and walked directly towards the door. However, as I passed by Robert, he suddenly hugged me. His face was buried in my neck, and his voice trembled as he said, "Sarah, I was wrong. Don't leave me." Robert held me and said many, many things, finally asking in a hoarse voice, "Sarah, where else can you go if you leave me?" So, Robert genuinely believed that I had nowhere to go if I left him. Was that why he had hurt me so recklessly? I struggled with all my strength to break free from his embrace. Turning around, I looked at him directly. "I have money, I can stay at a hotel. I have friends, I can go find Jessica. Robert, do you really think I'm your accessory?" Robert looked at me with wide, startled eyes. After a moment, he blurted out, "You can't leave." "What do you mean?" I frowned at him, sensing a wild emotion raging in his eyes. But he just repeated calmly, "You can't leave." The door was only a meter away from me. Why couldn't I leave? I ignored him and walked straight towards the door. To my surprise, when I pressed the lock, I heard a voice prompt indicating the door was locked from the outside. I couldn't believe it and pressed it again. The result was the same. I didn't know how he did it, but the door was locked from the outside. Sarah, I'll stay home with you and make up for all the time we've missed. Saying this, he walked into the kitchen as if nothing had happened and even asked me what I wanted to eat. Robert, we can't go back. Open the door. I tried to communicate with him as calmly as possible, but Robert paid no attention and kept talking to himself. I'll make your favorite braised pork ribs, okay? I felt like he was the one suffering from stress trauma. Seeing that I couldn't reason with him, I had no choice but to call Jessica. But when I took out my phone, I found that my SIM card had been removed. The Wi-Fi password had also been changed. I couldn't connect to the internet at all. Robert had completely cut off my contact with the outside world. I could no longer stay calm. I rushed into the kitchen and demanded angrily, "Give me back my SIM card." Robert seemed oblivious to my anger and said softly, "Whatever you want, I can give it to you. Whatever you want to do, I can help you do it." In short, I couldn't go out, and I couldn't contact anyone. That was his unspoken meaning. I could tell he was serious. "Are you going to imprison me?" I looked at him, unable to think of a more accurate word to describe his actions. Robert didn't deny it and simply changed the subject. "Sarah, you must be tired. Go back to the bedroom and rest. I'll call you when dinner is ready." I stared at him, feeling a surge of panic in my heart, because I could feel that he was serious. The following week proved that my feeling was correct. Not only did he not let me go out, he didn't even go to the company himself. In his words, he was focused on accompanying me. But this was clearly surveillance. The following time felt like being confined in a comfortable and luxurious prison. No matter how I struggled or made a scene, even if I smashed his treasured antiques, he would just look at me with a smile and say, "Whatever makes you happy." This wasn't working. I had to find someone to help. On the 5th day of being locked up, I started hitting the wall with things. I wanted to make enough noise to attract the neighbors and ask them to call the police for me. To my surprise, after only hitting the wall twice, Robert grabbed my wrist. "Sarah, go. OD. Don't force me to tie you to the bed." Hearing him say that, a layer of cold hair instantly stood up on my body. I was afraid he would actually tie me to the bed. That would leave me helpless. "Robert, stop doing these meaningless things. You should be able to feel that I truly don't love you anymore. I know. You hate me for not being there when you needed me, but you can only get revenge on me if you stay by my side." I never thought Robert was such an extreme person. Looking at it this way, we didn't know each other at all, and of course, there was no need to know each other in the future. I shook off his hand and denied his statement. "I don't love you, and I don't hate you. I just don't want to waste any more time." After 4 or 5 days of struggling, I was physically and mentally exhausted. So my tone when speaking to him was much calmer. Robert stared at me intently for a long time, finally showing a look of hurt. "Sarah, I never knew before how heartless you are. If you stop loving someone, you don't care if they live or die." When I heard that, I felt it was ridiculous. When you only had Emily Sue in your eyes, didn't you not care if I lived or died either? Robert's expression looked somewhat awkward. Since we had reached this point, I took out the phone that was still unusable and found a recording. It was the recording of Emily Sue speaking when I called him the night I had a fever. "Oh, I'm sorry, Rob is already asleep. If you need anything, you can find him tomorrow." "Oh, right. Aren't you already preparing the divorce papers? You must have dialed the wrong number, right? In that case, I won't pass on the message, okay?" In just a few dozen seconds, I saw Robert's expression change from surprise to anger. I slowly turned off my phone and suddenly remembered something else. "Oh, right, are you going to say that I was sick but still had the presence of mind to record, and that I'm too scheming?" In fact, that was a program I had developed myself. Every call was recorded to prevent me from missing any useful information. Robert shook his head and explained to me in a flustered manner. Sarah, it's not like she said. I was helping her fix a bug, I was too tired, and fell asleep at my desk. Let's stop here, Robert. It's too late for everything. Let's not continue to waste time and torment each other. From the moment I realized I was just a stand-in for his first love, I had already withdrawn from this relationship. Robert frowned, looking pained, and also like he was strategizing. After a moment, he suddenly asked me with a complicated tone, "Is it because of the child?" "What?" "Because you lost the child, that's why you won't forgive me." Robert walked towards me and hugged me tightly. I suddenly had a bad feeling. The next second, he pushed me down onto the sofa. He violently tore at my clothes, mumbling, "Then we'll have another one. Will everything be all right if we have another one?" I finally realized his intention and began to struggle with all my might. "Are you crazy? Let go of me." I couldn't push him off, so I clenched my fists and hit him hard. However, he was like someone possessed by a demon. I had never seen him look so terrifying. Even though we had been intimate countless times before, being forced was still so terrifying. Out of instinct, I reached towards the corner table beside the sofa. On it was a marble peacock sculpture/decoration. It was a peacock sculpture. I grabbed the peacock by the neck and forcefully swung it towards Robert's head. In an instant, blood gushed out. But he still wouldn't stop. I closed my eyes and slammed it down again. Soon, I felt a weight on my body. It was Robert, completely collapsed on top of me. I opened my eyes and confirmed that he had passed out. Blood flowed from his forehead onto my face and neck, staining my white pajamas red. Trembling all over, I pushed him away, but my legs felt weak, and I fell heavily onto the floor again. Just then, there was a sound of the doorbell ringing at the door. The door opened. Emily Sue walked in, accompanied by Robert's assistant. Seeing the scene before them, she screamed in panic. "Murder! Quick, call the police!" Robert's assistant was calmer after all. "I'll call for an ambulance. Then I'll call the police." Emily Sue took out her phone from her bag, but her hands were trembling so much she couldn't even swipe the screen. After a long time, she still hadn't done anything. I propped myself up off the floor and walked over to her. Perhaps it was because my face was covered in blood and I looked too terrifying. Emily Sue looked at me approaching, her face turning pale with fright, and she backed away several steps. What are you doing?" I looked at her phone. "Are you going to call the police?" "Yes, of course I will." Emily Sue seemed afraid of missing this opportunity to send me to prison and immediately dialed the police. She said I was trying to kill him. In Riverton, there hadn't been a major criminal case for a long time. Upon receiving the call, the police responded very quickly. Before the ambulance arrived, the police had already entered our living room and asked who called. Emily Sue raised her hand to indicate. "I called the police. She's trying to kill someone." She pointed at me with her raised hand, her expression showing how much she wished the police would take me away immediately. "Who told you to call the police?" Unbeknownst to me, Robert had already woken up. He said sharply, clutching his forehead, walked over to the police, his face full of apology. "I'm sorry, we were just messing around as husband and wife. I accidentally fell." Hearing that they were husband and wife, the police's stern expressions relaxed somewhat. Noticing the change in their expressions, my heart leaped into my throat. Because I had seen many news reports where the police, hearing it was a domestic dispute between husband and wife, would just mediate a few words and leave. I was very afraid they would do the same. The police's tone was no longer tense. They casually confirmed with me, "Is that true?" I knew that their perfunctory question was because some women would prioritize the stability of the family. For this, even if their own rights were violated, they would still echo their husband's statements. After the police asked, Robert and Emily Sue both looked at me. One with a complicated gaze, the other with overt hatred. I withdrew my gaze and calmly told the police. "No." "Sarah!" Robert called out my name in a panicked tone, but couldn't stop me from telling the truth. He was trying to force himself on me. I picked up the stone sculpture and hit his head in self-defense. You can check the surveillance footage. He uses it to monitor me, it must be on. Saying this, I raised my hand and pointed to the camera installed on the display shelf. The police glanced in the direction I was pointing. The red light on the camera was blinking, indicating it was indeed recording. They immediately sensed something was wrong. Aren't you husband and wife? Why was he monitoring you? I asked for a divorce, he refused, and started to imprison me. He even took out my SIM card and prevented me from contacting the outside world. If you don't do something today, I don't know what will happen next. Saying this, I also showed them my phone. No signal, no internet, just like a useless brick. I tried my best to keep my emotions calm, so that Robert wouldn't use it as an excuse to say I had mental problems. But my trembling voice still betrayed my fear, because I knew that today was my last chance. If the police categorized it as a domestic dispute and simply mediated a few words and left, I might be trapped in this home for the rest of my life. I looked at the two police officers, my heart filled with anxiety. The two police officers whispered to each other for a moment, then finally looked at Robert. Let's get the wound treated first, then we'll copy a video of this surveillance footage and take you to the police station for questioning. Robert stood still. He just looked at me deeply for a long time, then said in a low voice, I admit, everything she said is true. Hearing this, Emily Sue panicked first. Rob, what are you saying? Robert ignored her words and turned his gaze to the police. No need to copy the surveillance video. I'll go to the police station with you. After saying that, he looked back at me. Your SIM card, ID/identification, and passport are in the secret compartment in the study cabinet. There's also a bank card in there, the password is your birthday. Sarah, he took a step closer to me, then stopped when he saw me instinctively retreat. I'm willing to pay the price for my mistakes. Are you still willing to forgive me? His tone was calm, but a tear fell from the corner of his eye. Having witnessed his terrifying appearance, I couldn't tell if they were crocodile tears. I didn't give him any response, because whether I forgave him or not was irrelevant. I just wanted to have nothing to do with him for the rest of my life. Robert waited for a while, then finally followed the police, looking dejected. Watching his back as he got into the police car, the invisible hand that had been squeezing my neck finally disappeared. I let out a long breath. However, before I could fully exhale, I heard Emily Sue questioning me furiously. Sarah Song, are you crazy? You're going to ruin him like this. I rolled my eyes and asked nonchalantly, so what? If you really cared about him, you shouldn't have abandoned him back then for your so-called dreams. I was alive again, and my fighting spirit was back. During the few days I was imprisoned by Robert, what he talked about most often was his old history with Emily Sue. He and Emily Sue had indeed had a relationship that he considered unforgettable at the time. Emily Sue was the daughter of a scholar from a distinguished family, and he was her father's favorite student. They were 1 year apart, childhood sweethearts, and each other's first love. From high school to university graduation, a 7-year long-distance relationship, but the ending was not happy. At the meticulously planned proposal ceremony Robert had prepared, Emily Sue said she didn't want to get married so quickly. She wanted an opportunity to see a wider world while she was young. Under everyone's gaze, Robert could only watch her leave with tears in his eyes. But looking over the crowd, he saw her rush into the arms of a foreign man. From that moment on, he no longer loved her. He only decided to help her after she returned to the country following a failed relationship, merely to fulfill his promise to his mentor. Robert told this story, possibly wanting to prove that he and Emily Sue had no future together, and also wanting to ask for my forgiveness. However, at this moment, it became a knife that pierced Emily Sue's heart. Emily Sue's face turned exceptionally pale, completely bloodless. Perhaps that betrayal, in her eyes, was also shameful. But she quickly recovered, challenging me arrogantly. So what? The moment I came back, you became insignificant. His first choice is always me, and you are just my stand-in. That's right, I had long recognized my place. But now, I'm leaving. This stand-in role, whoever wants it can have it. I don't know how that sentence hit Emily Sue's sore spot. She suddenly screamed hysterically, Sarah's song. Stop being so self-important. Robert doesn't love you at all. He's just used to your presence, and habits change gradually. But I will always be myself. I will never be your stand-in. I ignored her inexplicable outburst, went to the study to retrieve my SIM card and other belongings, wiped off the blood, and then completely left the home that had once been mine. Having been confined for only 5 days, stepping back into the sunlight felt like being reborn. And I was indeed starting a brand new life. I would take the strength granted to me by the child who would never be born and begin my own life anew. Walking out of the door, I immediately took a taxi to the train station. I bought a ticket for the nearest train with seats available that day and went to a city I had never heard of before, Fairview. From then on, I would be alone, finding a home wherever I went. I wasn't idle on the train. I found a reputable lawyer online, presented my divorce demands, and entrusted the entire matter to him to ensure my marriage would smoothly reach its end. After arriving in Fairview, I only stayed in a hotel for 2 days before renting a yard that was very suitable for long-term living. Having recently experienced a stillbirth, my body was still a bit weak, so I didn't go out to apply for jobs. Instead, I found a few less urgent part-time gigs online and worked on them slowly at home. My next-door neighbor was a man in his 30s named David, who called himself a gardener. His yard was indeed maintained like a garden by him. But I knew that gardening wasn't his main profession, because the watch on his wrist was a Rolex. And his hands had no calluses, his nails were neatly trimmed, without any trace of dirt. He must be a wealthy man in semi-retirement. But he didn't want to say, so I didn't ask further. At first, we just chatted when we occasionally met. After that, he would often give me freshly bloomed flowers. I had nothing to give in return, so I would only send him some of the delicious dish. I cooked whenever they turned out particularly well. The sunlight quietly brightened and faded. Unconsciously, I had lived in this unremarkable but beautiful little city for over half a year. During this time, I didn't hear any news from Robert. I only knew that he still didn't want a divorce. Filing for divorce is a long process, and I was already prepared for that. Since we weren't living together anyway, I wasn't in a hurry. I thought the peaceful days would continue indefinitely, but to my surprise, Robert unexpectedly appeared before me on New Year's Eve at the end of the year. At that time, David was helping me hang lanterns. He was standing on an old bamboo ladder, and I stood below, steadying it for him, reminding him to be careful. Everything was fine while he was hanging them, but when he came down, his foot slipped, and he nearly fell. I quickly reached out to steady him. To my surprise, when I turned around, I saw Robert standing by the wall behind us. I don't know what he had been through, but in just half a year, he looked several years older. His temples were starting to turn gray. However, the moment I saw him, I was reminded of the terror of being pinned down by him that day. It felt as though my hiding place had been discovered by a demon, and I thought my peaceful life was about to end. But I looked into his eyes, and the obsession and madness that had been there before were gone. Sarah, is this your friend? David smiled broadly, his attitude very welcoming. Friend? Not exactly. Under Robert's gaze, I shook my head. Just someone I used to know. Oh, then is this gentleman here to see Sarah? David looked at Robert with a cheerful smile, like a family member greeting a guest I wasn't eager to interact with. Robert kept staring at me until David initiated a conversation with him. He seemed to snap back to reality and pulled a stack of documents from his briefcase. I came to give you this. He handed them to me. I saw a stock transfer agreement printed on the cover. I didn't take them and refused directly. I don't want it. Robert seemed to have anticipated that I would say no and wasn't in a hurry, just calmly asked me, "Don't you want a divorce?" I didn't answer immediately, but waited quietly for him to finish. If you want a divorce, then take this stock transfer agreement. Sign it, and I'll go to the county clerk's office with you immediately. I hadn't expected him to use this trick to force me. The divorce had been dragging on for half a year now. Not ending it was just a waste of time. If I didn't sign Robert's stock transfer agreement, he might misunderstand that I still wanted to cling to him. Considering this, I took the document and signed it decisively. Is that okay now? Robert looked at my signature, his tone joyful. Yes, it's okay. His reaction struck me as strange, but I didn't care to delve deeper and urged him impatiently. Shall we go get the paperwork done now? My eagerness, after all, still stung him. The joy on Robert's face instantly froze. After a moment, he reminded me awkwardly. It's New Year's Eve today, Sarah. The county clerk's office is closed. I suddenly felt that he did it on purpose. He deliberately chose today to come. But I didn't want to argue with him. This was my dream home, it shouldn't also have memories of arguments. I didn't expose him and just chased him away. In that case, you should go back first. Robert stood still, took out his phone, and pointed at the flight information on the screen. Heavy snow, flights are suspended. I had heard the news this morning that there was a heavy snow warning and flights might be affected. I then said, then take the train. Holiday travel rush. All the tickets are already sold out. Saying this, he showed me the screen of a ticket booking app. Everything he said was true, but I just felt that he was doing it on purpose. He came here and didn't want to leave, wanting to stay at my place? No way. I wouldn't give him a chance to get close to me again. Then go stay at a hotel. Saying that, I started to walk towards my home. Robert still wasn't giving up and said pitifully, the hotels were all full too. Fairview was a small city, not a tourist city. How could all the hotels be full? I thought he was lying, but before I could expose him, I heard David say cheerfully. Such bad weather, and he came all this way just to deliver money. It's New Year's Eve too, why not have dinner together? Come over to my place, Sarah, just for my sake? David had just helped me hang the lanterns. Yesterday, he had also given me a bag of dried locust flowers, saying he wanted to make dumplings together today. He had taken very good care of me these past 6 months, he certainly deserved this favor. Even though I was reluctant, I had to agree. You said we're going to your place. You're the host, there's nothing I can say. David laughed twice, then picked up the bamboo ladder and walked towards his home. As he walked, he also called out, Brother, come on over and sit for a bit. I'll make you some specialty tea preparation. Hearing him say that, I reminded him again. The tea set is still at my place. You made tea yesterday and didn't take it back. Yesterday, David had a friend visit and brought a bag of good quality tea cake/compressed tea. He specifically brought his tea set to my home to show me how to make specialty tea preparation. However, halfway through drinking tea, he heard the sound of a flower pot falling in the yard and rushed home, leaving his teacup behind. He said a wildcat had knocked over his favorite flower pot, and he needed to prune it properly, so he didn't come back. The tea set was left at my place. After I finished speaking, I was about to go get it, but when I turned around, I saw Robert staring at me intently, his eyes deep. I didn't know what he was thinking. Too lazy to analyze, as he smiled at me, I turned and walked into my home. The scene before me was strange. David was rolling dumpling wrappers, and Robert was folding dumplings. They were chatting back and forth about the recent economic situation, like friends who had known each other for years. Drinking my tea, I secretly wondered if David might be a mole Robert had planted next to me. Otherwise, why would he keep him here and chat so harmoniously? So, Sarah ate a whole 3 bowls that time. After David finished speaking, he laughed heartily. Unbeknownst to me, their topic had shifted to me. Coming back to my senses, I noticed Robert looking uncomfortable and asking me, Sarah, didn't you hate pasta dish? When I was with him, I indeed didn't like to eat it. The reason was actually very simple. I don't like green onions in the sauce, but you and your mother always put green onions in when you cook. If I didn't put green onions, you didn't like it, so I just stopped making it. I had told Robert about this before, but he always forgot. I thought that couples should be considerate of each other. He was already good enough to me, occasionally forgetting this small matter didn't need to be taken to heart. However, time had passed, and bringing it up again now, I realized that he probably only remembered Emily Sue's preferences. I said it very calmly, but Robert was filled with guilt. "Sarah, I'm sorry." Robert apologizing so often just annoyed me. I didn't respond to him and turned to watch TV. David's voice sounded from behind me. "Brother, it's New Year's Eve, don't keep apologizing. The mistake you made is clearly something that can't be fixed with an apology." These words hit Robert's sore spot. He finally dropped his pretense of composure and said unhappily, "What happens between us is none of your business to comment on." Hearing this, the emotions I had suppressed all day instantly exploded. However, I didn't say much, just turned back and looked at him coldly. "If you want to stay the night, just keep your mouth shut, otherwise leave immediately." If it hadn't been for David speaking up, I wouldn't have let him sit here at all. "Sarah." Robert started to sound wronged again. But this was all his own doing. I turned my gaze away and ignored him. I thought someone like him, who valued face so much, would definitely get up and leave. To my surprise, the room was silent for a long time before I heard Robert apologize awkwardly. "Sorry, I reacted too strongly. It's okay, it's okay. I'm not the type to hold grudges." David was quite generous. He was truly a good person. After talking to Robert, he came to coax me. "Sarah, don't be unhappy. I'll make your favorite braised pork ribs especially for you, to celebrate your new life that's about to begin, okay?" One shouldn't be too ungracious. Of course, I nodded my head in thanks, and at the same time, I silently sighed in my heart that David was truly a master of subtle provocations. From the mirror next to the TV, I saw Robert's face turn purple. David didn't seem to think his words were upsetting at all. After getting my reply, he asked Robert again, "By the way, brother, what's Sarah's favorite dish of yours?" "I'll learn it later." Asking Robert this question resulted in complete silence. From dating to marriage, he indulged me in other things, but cooking was always my job. Because the food he cooked really didn't suit my taste. It was the kind that I couldn't change no matter how I tried to teach him. Just like the green onions and the pasta dish sauce, he always put them in and then remembered I didn't eat them. Thinking of this, I impulsively asked, "Robert, do you only cook what Emily Sue likes?" The only answer was silence, and silence was the best answer. My heart felt nothing, but Robert's expression clearly turned even more purple. Just then, I received a message from my lawyer. A new policy recently came out requiring companies to hold a board member meeting every month, and all board members must be present. Therefore, I believe Robert isn't just trying to compensate you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to find you right after the policy was enacted. The lawyer's reply made me instantly understand. Robert was playing a trick, retreating to advance. He was freeing me from this hopeless marriage, only to pull me into another business relationship. Indeed, I was still too naive. But there was a way to escape. That night, I went home and went to bed without waiting for midnight. The next morning, Robert left a note and was gone. The note said he had to go back home for a family gathering and asked me to come back after the holidays to handle the divorce paperwork. Come back? Setting another trap for me? I wouldn't be foolish enough to fall into it again. I asked my lawyer to help me contact another shareholder in Robert's company. After confirming his interest in acquiring the shares, I sold the shares Robert had transferred to me to him. This way, no board member vote was needed, and Robert wouldn't have a chance to stop it. He wouldn't know his plan had failed until the board member meeting was held. Things went smoothly. The other party took the shares and gave me a substantial sum of money. However, I didn't keep the money. I donated it all to the children's home. Consider it a memorial to the child who once existed. I was quite satisfied with how I handled it. However, some people couldn't accept it. Not Robert, but Emily Sue. On early spring that year, I got a haircut, wanting to bring good luck. To my surprise, when I got home, I didn't see good luck, but instead ran into trouble. Emily Sue, who knows where she got the information, actually found my home directly. Seeing me, she walked towards me angrily and raised her arm without a word, preparing to slap me. She didn't know that I learned from my mistakes. The last time Robert almost assaulted me made me realize how weak I was. So, For the past half year, I had been training in boxing. My reaction speed and strength were much better than before. So, before Emily Sue's slap landed, I blocked it. Not only that, but I also slapped her back. Sarah Song, are you crazy? You dare to hit me? Emily Sue covered her cheek, staring at me in disbelief. I also frowned at her. Why are you both manipulative and scheming? Saying this, I pointed to the surveillance camera in front of David's door. The surveillance footage clearly shows who struck first. It's obvious. Emily Sue's face stiffened, then she immediately started accusing me. Do you hate Robert that much? You handed his hard work over to a stranger. Now he's gone from being the company owner to an employee. Are you happy with the money you got? You even have time to get a haircut? From her words, it seemed she was here to defend Robert. I found it ridiculous. Didn't Robert give it to me himself? Emily Sue wasn't here to listen to my explanation. How could she not know that Robert gave it to me? She was probably just here to vent her emotions. I didn't even want to bother with her. I just took out my phone and took a photo, sending it to Robert. Please come and pick up your person. Right after sending it, I received a messaging app message from David. Going to the boat race? There's also a night tour of Willow Lake tonight. When Robert arrived, the two of them would probably cause another scene. The thought alone was annoying, so I immediately accepted David's invitation. Before turning to leave, I told Emily Sue, if you truly care about him, this time don't abandon him again. I have nothing to do with him anymore. There's no need for you to come here and make your presence known. Saying that, I drove away directly to meet up with David. That evening, David and I stood on a boat, looking at the decorated night view around Willow Lake. I sincerely thanked him. It's a good thing you called me over. Otherwise, today would have been very unhappy again. David didn't joke around as usual. Instead, he looked at me seriously for a long time and asked cautiously, "Then could you give me a chance to make you happy every day from now on?" Hearing his confession, I wasn't surprised at all. I wasn't a naive girl. I had already sensed his intentions. However, precisely because I wasn't a naive girl, I wouldn't rush into another relationship on impulse. I looked at him and reintroduced myself. My name is Sarah Song. I'm 29 years old. My parents are deceased. I'm a female programmer without a fixed job, divorced, and had a stillbirth once. I'm not ready to start a new relationship right now. I saw the light in his eyes gradually dim, then instantly rekindle. He smiled at me, still very kind and gentle. It's okay. I'll always be here. When you're ready, just call me. I was surprised by his persistence. But the lake view was beautiful and shouldn't be wasted. This confession was like a subtle interlude. David wasn't disappointed, and I wasn't hesitant. Life went on, but Robert seemed to be stuck in the past. I heard that he eventually married Emily Sue, but he treated her very badly. In the eyes of those who didn't know their past, Robert married Emily Sue because he couldn't forget me. They said I was the first love Robert couldn't forget, and Emily Sue became my replacement.